We are back. New York City baseball, past, present, and future. And it's a Mets show, New York Mets. I'm here with my co-host, Marty Rose, who's from Jackson Heights, living in Jacksonville. And third guy in the booth, we're bringing him in, one of the most knowledgeable human beings about the Mets, writes an incredible blog about the Mets with realism and does not pull punches. Returning to the airways, John Delcos. How are you? How you both
I'm doing fine, Ralph and Marty, and wish you all a happy New Year, and I'm anxious for the season to start.
Yeah, boy, I'm jonesing it big time. You guys were watching the Rose Bowl. Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, Southern Cal started out with a bang. They went ahead, and Penn State came back, and actually they're leading. They had the first couple of scores in the second half, and it's a very high-scoring game. Not a lot of D, but we're seeing good quarterback play on both sides, actually.
USC just scored, so it's getting closer, but we're only halfway through the third quarter. Before this is done, both teams are going to have over 50, I'm betting.
I wouldn't be surprised. This game is going to take forever. It's a very long game.
Yeah, well, it's almost nice to see Penn State getting back some respectability. They suffered dearly and deservedly, but it's over. So
right.
Nice
not the fault of anybody that's there now. So.
Right, no, exactly. And players, coaches, administration, the school suffered greatly financially over this thing. And, again, rightly so, but these are different folks, different time. You can't kill the university for life. And so that felt pretty good. Because I came very close to going to Penn State. Oh, wait a minute. That was the State Penn. Never mind.
All right.
I get a little confused about my past. I was not a scholar. Mert, would you back me up on that? Just for the...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I know it sounded reluctant, but he meant it. You can back me up on that. Newtown High School. Omar Minaya. Any memories of who went to Newtown? He was one of our most illustrious alums, especially in baseball. Any memories, John, of Omar, where he went right, where he went wrong?
Well, I think that the thing with Omar that really had a sour case with me was how the Willie Randolph firing went down. I don't think that Randolph deserved to be fired. I think that Minaya took the hit for the ownership, which acted harshly and too quickly. You just don't fire somebody at midnight like that, but that's what happened, and I think that it wasn't. The thing about it is, at that time, Minaya made some decisions that were not, which on the surface looked good, but obviously backfired. The Rodriguez, Francisco Rodriguez was a bad signing. How they handled Oliver Perez was a bad signing. You don't give that guy a 3-year extension. That was all done poorly. The Jason Bay signing was a huge mistake. You build a new stadium, Citi Field, and you say you're going to build your team around pitching and defense. So what's the first thing you do? You give $66 million to a guy that is not a real proven power hitter. He had a big year for the Red Sox, and that was it. But he's not the kind of guy that you're going to build an offense around. I think that those were all contributing factors. I think the Johan Santana signing was obviously turned out bite him in the rump. Here's a guy that had shoulder issues before the signing, and you sign him to a contract. You give up all these prospects, and then you sign him to a huge extension. You have to look at it is that the reason that Johan Santana became available to the Mets was because the Red Sox and the Yankees were playing chicken with each other with the Twins, and when they both backed out, the Mets were bidding against themselves, both in obtaining the player in trade, and then for the free agent contract. It was a contract a signing that did not work out for the Mets, and I think that they regretted that.
Well, it's amazing how signing pitchers to long-term deals rarely works out. I mean,
it doesn't work out.
It doesn't. Especially today with the injuries and the overextension of arms and how hard they throw and all of that. That's got to be long-term. Tell me why you think Willie Randolph was a bad fire, and tell me something about Willie that I may not know. And that's could be a lot of things. But was he a manager? Was he a player's manager?
Well, I think he was. I think Randolph was a good manager for what opportunity he was given. And the Mets hamstrung him from the beginning. They didn't let him hire his own coaches, which was a mistake. They what they did is that they sabotaged Randolph. They had an assistant general manager, Tony Bernazard, who was a mole in the clubhouse and who went around and talking to players behind Randolph's back and getting dirt on the manager and hearing the players bitch and moan. And then he went back to the front office with that stuff. That's just not a way to run a team or a front office. They backstabbed him. So I think that Randolph was betrayed by his front office, which included Omar Minaya. And you had Omar Minaya, who was taking behind the scenes reports from Tony Bernazard and working that against Randolph, and that just wasn't the right way to handle things.
I don't remember. Something else went down with Tony Bernazard. Was it PEDs?
Well, no. Well, what it was is that he. I don't remember the exact story, but he got in a shouting match, and he took off his shirt and threatened some player or somebody. We can fight it out right here. Bernazard was a punk, and they didn't need him. And you can tell that nothing. Bernazard never became anything after he left the Mets. What has he done since? He's just faded into the woodwork. And so,
well, I was going to ask, not in an uncomplimentary way, because I don't know, where is Willie Randolph now? What is he doing in baseball?
He's retired. He's not doing anything with baseball.
Okay.
He didn't get another opportunity. I'm sure that there was a lot of things that were said about him that sabotaged his chances of ever getting another managerial job.
Yeah.
Was there any
showing up
in particular?
Showing up at Old Timers Day in the Bronx. That's about it.
Yeah, well, that's, somebody's got to show up.
Yeah.
That used to be a great Old Timers Day. But,
Used to be.
Oh, the Yankees?
Not anymore. I mean,
well,
I mean,
they had some. You got to say they had some old timers. I was always away at summer camp, so I can't remember going to one Old Timers Day, but I listen and watch a lot of YouTube, and they've got some of those. Some of them, Mantle's retirement was like an Old Timers Day. And I listen to that. It's about 20 minutes of pure, just clapping. 60.
Yeah, I remember that. That was tremendous. Yeah. That was just absolutely tremendous.
It was a time when a lot of these guys that he played with early on were still with us. Tommy Heinrich, and they trotted everybody out. Rizzuto and Berra and Ford and Joe Collins, and everybody and their dog came out. And
even Joe DiMaggio came out for that.
DiMaggio as well, and DiMaggio was very, very gracious. I don't think his feelings were hurt that day, and he was one egotistical.
Well, you know the story about when Mantle retired, and they gave his plaque. Put him in Monument Park. They asked DiMaggio to attend, but he wouldn't attend until they gave him a plaque too. So DiMaggio kind of stole Mantle's thunder, and which is, if you read the not the autobiography, but the biography by Richard Ben Kramer about DiMaggio, would kind of tell you what kind of person Joe DiMaggio was. Not a nice guy, not a very selfish guy, a person that just had to look good all the time. So, but that's Joe DiMaggio, and it's not.
Well, the one thing I can tell you from doing this podcast thing and talking to a lot of folks, many of whom have written books specifically. Tony Castro comes to mind. Peter Golenbach, of course, who is on the network, comes to mind. There's a lot of stuff both ways on DiMaggio. That a lot of stuff you hear from his teammates. He was apparently an ideal teammate, and the rift between Mantle and DiMaggio, especially according to Tony Castro, who happened to write a book, Mick and DiMaggio, among other books, about the subject. He says that the rift between them was, notwithstanding the kind of person he was as a human, the rift between Mantle and DiMaggio was very, very over-exaggerated. And
well, that's not what Mantle wrote in his book. Yeah, Mantle had his own autobiography.
Well,
he wasn't shy
I don't know
about
if Mantle ever read the book, whatever book that he was supposedly wrote. So a lot of that could be how he was feeling that day, how the writer, who did he write the book with?
He wrote his honestly, I forgot.
October, it was at the October, All My Octobers,
something like that. But, it goes back to, Mantle, when Mantle came up, he was, and this was based on Mantle's writings. Mantle was in awe of DiMaggio. He was afraid to talk to him. And from his point, and to go back into what Kramer wrote, DiMaggio was very uncomplimentary of Mantle, calling him a lunkhead, an ironhead, stupid, things like that. But it stems from it stems from DiMaggio's burning
insecurities, his own insecurities,
not to look prowess. And in the 1951 World Series, DiMaggio's playing center field. Mantle is playing right field. Now the protocol is that it's a center fielder's ball. The center fielder calls for it, and everybody backs off. Well, Willie Mays hits a line drive to right center, and Mantle's closing in on it, and he doesn't hear anything from DiMaggio to back off the play. Well, not until the very last second, that when DiMaggio was certain that he could get the ball without diving for it or without straining for it, he waited to the very last second to call Mantle off. Well, Mantle peeled off, and he stepped on one of those drains.
A drainage ditch thing.
The spout that irrigated the field. And he blew out his right knee, and he was never the same since. He always played the rest of his career in pain. And Mantle said that that was all on DiMaggio. DiMaggio did that, and because DiMaggio didn't want to take the chance of looking bad and missing the ball
But had he not stepped in the drain, which was like 1,000,000-to-1 shot, of that being there, he just would have been called off, and that would have been it. But stepping in the drain was not DiMaggio's fault.
No, but the fact that Mantle had to peel off at the last second, and stepped on the drain, that's what hurt him, and Mantle never forgave DiMaggio for that, and DiMaggio, that was just we can argue all you want about Mantle and DiMaggio, but that was Mantle's feelings, and it was written in Kramer's book on DiMaggio. It was written in Mantle's book. I'm sure that other books written about DiMaggio where that issue is glossed over, but it wasn't glossed over in Mantle's mind, and that really hurt him. And if that hadn't happened, who knows what kind of career Mantle would have had. I mean, he was a Hall of Famer anyways. He hit over 500 home runs. But he had...
I can blame him for calling Mantle off late, but what I'm saying is you really can't blame him for the injury, which...
Well, DiMaggio's actions in that, and calling him off late, caused him to step in the drain and caused him injuries. Mantle could have held feel of that ball without any problems, but DiMaggio wanted to make the play. Well, he should have called for it sooner.
Well, he was the center fielder too when you
right.
Think of it.
Yeah, you're right. He's a center fielder, and the center fielder has the right to call off a play. But the bottom line is that he waited too late to call off Mantle, and consequently Mantle stepped in the drain, was hurt, and had late problems throughout his career.
Yeah, it's bad luck.
Sure it is. Yeah,
right.
Sure it is.
Absolutely bad luck, and I don't. I'm not trying to say anything good about DiMaggio. I don't think, other than his undying respect for all these guys, Hank Bauer and Heinrich, and all these guys just worshipped him.
Sure they did. But a lot of them were afraid to talk about DiMaggio or against him for fear of being cut off by DiMaggio and being isolated from him. You know, and even after DiMaggio died, you didn't hear too much from his former teammates. Of course, most of them were dead by then, but you know, there's a lot of things, you know.
Well,
what's going on with the Mets, Ralph?
I just want to say one thing. Speaking of the Mets too, original manager Casey Stengel, I think if he ever did anything great in his career, like maybe winning 5 World Series in a row and 10 rings and all these things, it was that 1951 year of the transition with DiMaggio, going out and Mickey coming in. And that took some managing as far as I could see.
Sure it did.
Yeah.
But, DiMaggio called all the shots on that team. And if you listen to, if you read that book, you've got to read that book by Kramer. It's just fascinating.
If I'm not mistaken, I read it at one time or another. Mert may not know this. My brother worked for Morris, whatever his name was, DiMaggio's attorney.
Engelberg?
My brother was a tax accountant in that office.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
So he could tell you basically the one story my brother talks. When he'd come in, it'd be a special day. DiMaggio's coming in the office to sign bats or hang or whatever it is, but it was almost like the king is coming. And the king would walk in immaculately dressed and just the red tie. This is in Florida in the middle of the summer, whatever. Right. He was just Joe. And he'd walk in and he would not know anybody's name. He'd be there week after week, year after year, but would not know anybody's name. So he would go, "Hi there, Bazeball. Hi there." It's funny to me. That's how DiMaggio would be in the office.
Morris Engelberg, yeah. Well, those guys, that book didn't paint a good picture of DiMaggio or Engelberg, and if you read it, you came away with a feeling that, I don't like this guy, meaning DiMaggio, and I when I covered the Yankees in their 100th anniversary season, and I was asked to pick I was the Yankee beat writer. I was asked to name my all-Yankee team, and I named it, and I put Mantle in center, and I didn't put DiMaggio in center. And I said, "Well, why don't you just put Mantle on right?" I said, "Well, that's not my team. My team is Mantle in center, and then I forget who I put in right field. Oh, Babe Ruth I put in right field. How could I not put Babe Ruth?
Probably makes most teams.
And I think I put Dave Winfield on left field, or Tommy Henrik, one of those two. I forget who. But I never believed in that. Mantle was a center fielder, so he was my center fielder, and my editor gave me a hard time. But I said, well, this is what it's my. You hired me to write this, and this is what I think, and we'll let the readers call and rip me up. And I wrote several
too. I'm sure you were writing it with the idea that I'll give my opinion and let it be.
Well,
that's part of
that's right. Well,
baseball, hot stove baseball. That's one of the things.
Beautiful thing.
I appreciate your honesty. And speaking of your honesty, we talked a little bit today off the air about the Mets and how you feel. You're not very optimistic, and if you would give us some reason for what makes you feel good and maybe what makes you feel bad at the same time, so you're giving homage to both. about their future? Start with the good. Is there anything that you see that you're very excited about?
They're good. Yeah, they're coming off their second straight season in which they made the playoffs. That's a positive.
Okay.
I'm more hopeful than anything else on their young starting pitching. When you have four starting pitchers that are coming off surgery, that's a reason to be concerned. And I'm very concerned about their starting pitching. I just can't assume that they're going to just, throw their gloves out there and be winners. There's not one of these pitchers, not one of them, who has won more than 15 games in his career. And they're all coming off some sort of arm problems. And so that's an issue to be wary of. I think that the bullpen is really in shambles. You have one given in that bullpen right now, and that's Addison Reed, who's going to go from a setup guy to the closer, because you have to figure that Familia is going to get a suspension.
Right, but you also have to figure they have an excess if, pray God, the starters
they do
much
have
more healthy. Last year, you have to assume they're going to be more healthy than last year just by the numbers.
Yeah,
so maybe they'll have Wheeler to work with,
Wheeler hasn't pitched in 2 years. You can tell me that Wheeler's going to step in after not pitching for 2 years and then all of a sudden become a big stud? I don't know.
Well, he doesn't have to be the big stud. He can be a 6th, 7th inning guy.
Well,
you're asking
him to do a role that he's never had before. So I think the fact that it only has 2 pitches really to speak of, it makes it feasible that Wheeler can work out of the bullpen. But, we don't know. He's never done it before. We don't know how he can pitch on 2, 3, 4 days in a row.
Have you guys been following the Familia case and
yeah, he's
chance of acquittal or?
Well, it was thrown out of court.
It was
thrown out of court.
And his wife
didn't know that.
Press any charges, but that doesn't mean anything with what Major League Baseball is going to do, because Jose Reyes' wife wasn't pressing any charges. Aroldis Chapman's girlfriend didn't press any charges.
Yeah, I think this is similar to the Chapman deal where he got 30 games, didn't he?
Yeah. So I'm thinking that it's got to be between 30 and 50, and so I got to figure that he's going to come down with that. That's going to be an issue. If you look at the Mets player by player, or position by position, you don't know what's going to happen at catcher. Darno has never done anything. They're still waiting for him to become a player. Lucas Duda was injured last year, and he's again coming off an injury.
But you've got Loney to back him up.
They haven't brought the Loney back yet. They haven't brought him back yet, and they don't think he's going to. But Duda's always been a hit or miss player, and we don't know what he's going to do. Now Neil Walker's coming off back surgery. That's an issue.
But it enabled them to sign him much less expensively.
He got the qualifying offer. But even so, despite the qualifying offer, we still don't know how he's going to respond from back surgery. We don't know.
It's true.
Nobody knows. That's a complicated. Look how long it's taken David Wright to come back.
And will he ever?
Will he ever? As Drupal Cabrera he has an option year after this one, but he's going to be gone after this year.
But say Wright doesn't come back. You got Reyes and Cabrera on the left side this year. You got Flores if
they've never given
Days
Flores
Walker
a chance.
Doesn't play, or this, that, and the other thing.
They've never given Flores a chance to win a job, a full-time playing job. As far as I'm concerned, they've really sabotaged any chance for Flores becoming a viable player. They have. They
had Dilson Herrera, who I liked for.
He's now with Cincinnati,
right,
because of the Jay Bruce trade.
Right. And now one of those two corner outfielders, because you've got Conforto, you've got Granderson, and you've got Bruce, and maybe Conforto. You guys know better than I do. Can Conforto play center with any sort of...
Well, they tried him in center last year, and he looked good at times, but they never really gave him a full shot there.
Right.
So that's a problem. Who's right now? They want Curtis Granderson to play center field. Well, if you got Granderson in center, then who's going to play? Cespedes is going to play left, and you don't know who's going to play right.
Will probably be Bruce unless they can move.
Well, if they can't move Bruce, you got to figure he's got to play. So you're not going to platoon Bruce with Conforto because you're platooning two left-handed hitters.
Oh,
so,
right.
I don't know how much playing time.
Then you could throw in Lagares into the mix. When he's healthy, he's fast as can be, and was a really good center fielder before he got hurt.
Yeah, but originally they signed Cespedes or brought him back after that first year with the idea of him playing center field, but he doesn't want to play center field. And the fact that Cespedes is insistent on playing left field delays any kind of movement or opportunity for them to give the job to Conforto full time. I think they monkeyed around with Conforto last year way more than they should have. They brought him up and they sent him down, and he was on that shuttle to Vegas all the time. I think that I want Conforto to play all the time, but you don't know if he's going to. You don't know how much time he's going to play. And
have either of you heard anything about McCutchen? If there's
the Pirates want too much for him, and the Mets aren't going to give up what the Pirates want. They're just not going to do it. I would like McCutchen, but the Mets aren't going to do it.
I think that would be terrific with him in center field. He's coming off a bad year. They may be able to get him a little less expensively.
Yeah, they could, but the Pirates are. The guys are a perennial all-star. The Pirates are going to ask a lot for him, as well as they should. And then he has a reasonable salary. I think it's like, I forget what it is now. I can look it up. I think it's $13 million or something like that. I don't know.
You're going to give up like Syndergaard and Conforto for him. That's what.
And Conforto.
That's the minimum.
You should not give up Syndergaard. At this point, he's about the only one who hasn't been hurt. I don't think Syndergaard has had arm problems.
Well, he has a bone spur in his elbow.
But he didn't have surgery though.
Not yet, anyways. But with the bone spur, the prognosis is it could happen any time. And the Mets called it last year a quote pain tolerance issue, but it's pain in Syndergaard's elbow. It's not the pain in Sandy Alderson's elbow. So that's a big thing right there. How much pain can he tolerate? I don't know, but
is it a given that Harvey's going to be traded? Do you guys think?
No. Speaking for myself, I think he's going. I think that the Mets should trade him. I think that Harvey is going to opt out after the 2018 season, I guess it is, and become a free agent. And I think he's going to go to. I think he's going to leave. I don't see the Mets bringing him back.
He seems to like New York. Would he end up with the Yankees?
Yes, he would. And I think that's what he wants. What he wants. I think deep down he wants to be a Yankee. He grew up a Yankee fan. He just, it stands to reason that the Yankees are now building, stockpiling a lot of young players, and I can see them. I can see Harvey ending up with the Yankees.
He's going to have to prove himself the next 2 years.
I'm sure he has to.
Yeah.
He's a 500 pitcher. I think his career record is 28 and 29, or 29, 28. It's not dumb. It's not dumb.
Okay.
It's not dumb.
I'm going to ask each of you guys, before we close it out, to give me what you think is the most hopeful part of the future. And I'll go first because I'm having a hard time formulating the question. But the answer for me is that they are very deep with young shortstops in the organization. And I think that will get them by one way or the other. If there are injuries or if they have to make a trade, having a young guy, having a couple of three guys, Reynolds, Cicchini,
Rosario
is probably the better of the three.
He's a number one ranked
Reynolds guy. Reynolds played very well for them.
Yep.
And they put him on that shuttle back and forth as well.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think?
Well, I mean, to me,
what's good?
What's good? I still have to go with the young pitching based on what we saw at the end of last year, where two guys came up that nobody even knew who they were, and they pitched really well. So,
right.
From what I've been hearing or watching or seeing, the only guy that I'm a little shaky with is DeGrom. I don't think he's anywhere near 100%, but I've seen Matz on TV. He said he's fine. I think Syndergaard's fine. And they say Harvey's on schedule, so I still think it's this team's about the starting pitching, and it will be for the next couple of years.
I agree with you. I think hopefully if everything works out the way they want it to, it breaks right for them. It's their starting pitching. I'm not as down on DeGrom as you might be. I actually think that DeGrom is okay.
Oh yeah.
I like DeGrom. I think of all of them, he's their best quote pitcher as far as keeping his composure during a game, as far as being able to work the corners, as far as challenging hitters.
It's a good fielder.
Yeah, I think Syndergaard still has a way to go. I think Syndergaard's problem is that he tries to overpower people too much, and he runs his pitch count up way high, and he's
still only 23.
Yeah, he is. So it's really hard to make a judgment on Syndergaard right now, but he still has a lot to learn. I think DeGrom is a better quote pitcher. I think Syndergaard is still tries to blow people away.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that can change too.
Yeah, it can. It can. Are you
guys happy with the coaching staff, managerial staff, and the coaching staff?
I'm sorry?
Managerial staff with Collins and his guys.
Well,
No, I don't know.
Go ahead, Jim. I'm not a big Terry Collins fan. I have my concerns with him. I don't think he uses his bullpen well. I don't think he uses his bench very well. You mentioned Wilmer Flores earlier. Last year, they had an opportunity with Flores because he is the most versatile infielder they have. When with Duda out and Loney was playing first base and Walker was having his problems and Cabrera.
He played a little shortstop as well.
I thought the prudent thing to be would have been one day he plays third, the next day he plays short, the next day he plays second, the next day he plays first. And what you're doing when you do that is you're giving everybody a rest, and you're keeping Flores' bat in the lineup. And Collins never saw fit to do that, and I don't know why, but I don't like how Collins did his bench. I don't like how Collins yanked Conforto around. One day he says, well, he's going to be the number 3 hitter, the future for the Mets, and then the next thing you know, you're benching him.
Right.
I think Collins is too inconsistent. I don't think he has the backbone to stand up to his players, in particular Cespedes. And if you look back at what happened last year with the Mets, Cespedes, he hurt his quad because he misplayed a ball in center field, and then he's out on the golf course. People say, "Well, it's only golf," but the thing is when you're spending 2 hours, 3 hours on the golf course, you're working your legs, you're making your legs tired, but above all that, you're not in rehab. You're not in rehab, and that's where if you're trying to get better, then you gotta be rehab. You have to be in the work. You have to be working out, trying to strengthen your legs. But he never did that, and Collins, neither Collins nor Alderson called Cespedes out on that. And Alderson said, are you going to let him golf anymore? And Collins said, well, I have to get a hold of his people. What is that? You're the general manager of the team, for crying out loud. You don't want him to golf? Then you don't let him golf. And the fact that both of them, kissed up to Cespedes just showed how out of control they are.
When you're always thinking about not offending him, because you really do need to re-sign him as well. What can I tell you? We hear a lot about bad things about Cespedes. He led him to the pennant the first year. He really did have a very, very good year last year. And a couple of days ago, I was on a show on the network with Weighted Donuts with Wayne, and his guest was John Trinidad, who's the radio producer of the A's out here, and we talked about him. There was never any problem with Cespedes when he was with the A's. He was a good teammate. He was a certainly a good ball player. Left not because of anything he did. A's financial situation is very, very messed up. And I don't know much about what he did in Detroit. Mert and I joke about this, how this guy won a Golden Glove, yet he did. And maybe his quad injuries, which might include, just walking, could be rehab. Is that possible?
It's possible. I'm not a therapist, but You know, if
right.
You don't,
so maybe golf isn't.
When you swing a golf club, you're putting strain on your legs. You have to.
Sure you are.
Especially on a tee shot, you know.
There's a lot of torque in the golf shot, you know, with your hips and your quad and your legs. Plus the fact that you're walking all that distance, you know, it takes a lot out of you. And he said, well, you know, he'd rather golf. Well, during the World Series, he went golfing too. You're trying to win a World Championship, and you're out trying to find a golf course in Chicago in late October. Come on, what are your priorities? And here's the thing about Cespedes that really floors me. He's 31 years old, and you know, he came over from Cuba, and he's already played with 4 teams. If you're that good, if you're that much of a star, why are you playing with 4 teams already?
Well, it's because of the economic times we live in.
If you're that big a player, that great a player, then you got to find a way to keep him, right?
Well, but you also, how many people want you? It's the old Bobby Bonds thing. Guy gets traded an awful lot. Somebody wants him as well. Hey, 2 years we've had him. 2 years we made the playoffs, and we have an even chance, I would say, to make the playoffs again. Would you say, guys?
They have a chance. I wouldn't say that. I don't think they're going to win the division. I don't think.
Okay, but outside of the division, there are 2 other playoff spots.
Yeah.
So
the 2 wild card teams, you know.
Right, and I don't see anybody getting particularly better. There are very few deals this off season. So
I think St. Louis is going to be a lot better than they were last year. St. Louis
that is absolutely true. That's the one
down year. So you know the Pirates. I think the
Pirates would be better off keeping McCutchen. And they could turn it around. I predicted they'd win it all at the beginning of last year.
You have
what the hell I know.
The Cardinals, the Pirates, and the Dodgers, and the Giants. You know,
and the Cubs.
You know, and I think the Cubs are going to win the division. So I'm looking at potential wild card teams.
Right.
L.A. or San Francisco, and I think you'll look at I think Colorado is going to be substantially better. I think the Cardinals will be better. There are a lot of teams out there that can contend for the Mets for that wild card, and I don't know what you think is going to be the number of wins for the wild card. 85 maybe, 87.
We're going to wrap it up, but I just want to tell you how much I respect the fact, John, that you were a pioneer as the new media, I call it, has taken over. The podcasters, the bloggers. Tell us about that. When you took over, when you started your blog, blogging wasn't something that was respected in the industry. You had to write it. Oh, this guy's I heard that in a blog, whatever that is.
Well, I
how you overcame that is.
I covered the Yankees and the Mets, and I was the first New York sports writer to host a live interactive chat room during the games, and I did that on my blog. When I was working for Gannett, we had to do blogs. When I got laid off by Gannett, a despicable company, if there ever was one, and you can quote me on that.
We already have.
Yeah, I know. I got a lot of feedback from my readers, to keep the blog up. So I kept the blog up. I had somebody design a site for me. So they designed the site for me, and I've still been blogging since. I'm still looking for some tech people for me, but I kept the blog up because I got a lot of people that were interested in it, and I was flattered by that. So I still do it. As you may or not know, I was severely injured in an accident a couple of years ago, and I keep the blog up because it's my way of staying connected to the game, connected to writing, and if there's somebody out there that wants to take a look at a writer, I want to make sure that he sees that I'm still, I still have my head in the game. And so that's
beautiful. And we're going to get you some exposure here because Mert and I were talking right before you got on. Like I mentioned it, your knowledge is incredible, and what I enjoy about you is your passion and the fact that you just want to keep going. And that's
tell the people the name of the blog.
You can't quit, Ralph. If you quit, where else are you going to go?
Right.
It's NewYorkMetsReport.com, right?
Yeah, and you spell it all out.
That's right.
And,
okay. Beautiful, guys. Thank you for a wonderful show, gentlemen.
And I'm sure we'll talk again real soon.
Absolutely.
You well, John. Thank you.
We're going to do, Mert, we're going to do the Mets 1 week during the winter, the Yankees next week. So you're off. You guys are off next week. But the week after that, let's reconvene as we get closer to spring training, and we'll see how it flies. These are exciting days.
Sounds good.
40 more days till pitchers and catchers.
Great.
I like the sound of that.
We get through it, Mert. We always have.
Yep. One more time. Yep.
All right.
Gentlemen, you ever have
Thanks, guys. This is wonderful. Nice show.
Thanks for having me on.
Everybody out there, as John will tell you, do not quit. Keep on keeping on. Whatever it is, there are always adversities in life. And we'll see you next week. Be well,
Thanks,
guys.
gentlemen. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.